there is notionally the idea that in a democracy, the viewer is the king. My colleague Ravish, who's an anchor on the Hindi channel on NDTV India, on our sister channel, also referred to this in his introduction yesterday. That the idea is that the viewer is king. That you control the remote. You have the remote control in your hand, and then you can choose. If you don't like news outlets that are propagandists of the government, you can switch. But it's reached a stage now where that spectrum of this kind of this kind of editorial line has become so widespread that the option for the viewer has squeezed and has become so narrow.
Yes. So then, it is very surprising. So many of the persons will call the TV the idiot box. And then, like idiots, they will sit gaping at it. Why don't you switch it off? Read books. If you don't have an option and you see that this is just a government propaganda channel and all other channels are the same way, why spend your time watching TV? Read books, spend time with each other. I remember a statement of the Dalai Lama that these days wives and husbands are in perfect harmony. They are both looking in the same direction at the TV screen. They're not talking to each other. So is that the way we want to be? And we must recognize, the viewer must recognize his power, as you rightly said, he has the remote in his hands, but he also must recognize that the freedom of speech is not something that is meant for the press.
Right.
It is a foundational freedom on which the other freedoms which the viewer is enjoying all depend. So it is very necessary for him to be alert to the change in the character or the tilt of the newspaper that he is reading or of the TV channel that he is watching.
Right.
And he must broadcast to his friends this change.
One of the good things.
It is very necessary to do that.
One of the good
and he
things,
must very carefully watch what is happening to the free flow of information.
Right.
I don't know how many of your viewers will know how the RTI is being choked. One is in a systematic way. It was one of the great rights that the people of India won. This right to information.
Yeah.
And it is slowly and slowly being choked. One of the papers that is doing the best work in this regard, the Indian Express in the North, I learned that now in almost every application which they file is first rejected. And it is only at the appeal stage, which takes many months, that you eventually get what should be not just the right, but it should be the custom of the of everyone to get to know those facts.
But one of the
things. So I think both you have the power, you are not exercising it, and you are not recognizing the importance of a free flow of information.
And the other danger here is that
I would add one more thing.
From a public,
that is that today, actually speaking, on the internet, new websites have come up.
Yes.
Alt News, there is a website, HM Hoax Slayer, there is another thing called Boom Fact Check. These websites are devoted to checking facts about claims made by political parties, especially by governments, center or state.
They're doing a terrific job.
I would appeal to your viewers, if you are finding that your channels are not working today, please make it a habit to look at these websites every single day before you swallow what is being fed to you by the established media.
Let me ask you this.
So the reader has a very big role to play.
Okay, Mr. Shourie, let me ask you this.
I also would like to alert him to the fact that this is going to get worse in the coming months. Partly because of the nature of this government, because its singular aim is totality of control over the entire geographical space of India, over every institution, over every forum like the media, that they want to do this. So it is going to get worse. Secondly, the reason why it is going to get worse, I feel, is that the gap between their claims and what is happening in real life, which the citizen is experiencing, is already so wide, it is going to get wider. So what will they do? They will then turn more and more to suppression and management of the media.
Okay.
So the viewer, as much as the media, must wake up to this reality.
Okay. Right. Mr. Shourie, let me try to see, I think there's a little bit of a problem that we're having with your line. Let me try to still ask you this, and hopefully we will be able to get through to you, is that, you know, the concern is that it's not just the fact that there's a public and a populace which seems to be largely, or at least to a certain degree, unconcerned about what is happening with this kind of co-option of the media, but the media itself seems to be so deeply divided. And we'll just try and go back a second to you know, some of those statements that we saw from the editors guilds and other sort of media organizations, just to kind of recap those while we try to get Mr. Shourie's line back up. Is that while we did see all this you know, show of solidarity, we did see so many different organizations coming out and saying that they were deeply concerned about the raids, and they saw it very much as part of an attempt to suppress the media. But it doesn't quite seem, Mr. Shourie, I believe you're back now, it doesn't quite seem, again, just to go back to an earlier time, do you see less solidarity in the media today compared to earlier? Are we much more of a divided house, and in fact there's a whole section of the media that may actually be enjoying what's going on and not realizing the consequences of it, that if today if it's us, tomorrow it could be them?
Yes, yes. Well, yes and no. In the emergency, there were only 2 or 3 newspapers like the Indian Express and the Statesman which stood up, and there were small magazines like Himmat, run by Mr. Rajmohan Gandhi, and a small magazine run by Mr. A.D. Gorwala. These very few that stood up, the rest of the media went along. In Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's time, actually many papers had become the spokesman for Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, but when he brought the defamation bill, then everybody got together and the government had to rescind that bill, and Mr. Jagannath Mishra had to take back the Bihar Press bill also.
Okay, let me ask you this, because we're completely out of time. Let me just, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm just told that, you know, how quickly time has gone. I'm told we literally have 2 minutes left. I want to ask you what advice you would have for journalists who are working in this climate today.
First, stand by each other, because today the attack is on somebody else, tomorrow it will come on you. Secondly, please give the maximum publicity to the slightest, to every little encroachment on freedom of the press or of broadcasting. Third, redouble the work which is troubling the government, because if the government is reacting, that means what you are doing is right. Examine every claim, examine every promise, follow every promise of the government. The Prime Minister said some years ago that he will within the year bring a law which will ensure that a charge against every MP or every minister will be brought to a conclusion within 1 year. What happened to that promise? And has the media followed it? No. Then I personally feel that as things are going to get worse, Vasu, please just allow me 1 minute more. Please, we must now think of new methods of acquiring information and dissemination. Learn from the hackers in this world. But if all channels become North Korean channels, if all papers toe the government line, don't despair. Because people will see the contrast between what the media is saying and what is happening in their own lives, and that will awaken them. We must believe the fact that truth coheres and falsehood falls apart. That is what the confidence that we must have.
I love
but that doesn't mean that we should neglect our duties today. And the first step is stand by each other, which the media is not doing.